Good evening. Welcome back to Ask 9 here in the streaming studio. I'm Becky Phelps.
And I'm Jim Mertens. The president's speaking in Clive, Iowa, near Des Moines. That speech just wrapping up. You were watching the entire speech. It was, of course, streaming on KCRG apps. We were trying to cover it as best we could.
I was thinking we might not have Ask 9. I was thinking it could blow out the show.
Yeah, it was possible. The president actually showing up for the speech more than an hour late, close to an hour and a half late. It was supposed to start at 3 o'clock, and I think it started at about 3:25 or something like that in that area.
3:22.
Okay.
I wrote it down exactly somewhere. No. 4:22. Excuse me.
I'm sorry, you're absolutely right. You're absolutely right.
4:22.
Yes, because we joined it in progress during the 4 o'clock and could only stay with it for until 4:36 to be exact, just to let you know. And then it was, of course, the continuous coverage on KCRG apps.
The president had a very busy schedule while he was here in Iowa. Before the speech, he was at the Machine Shed restaurant, which was in Urbandale, another city, but just 5 minutes down the road. And he spent a lot of time with people there. He was, doing handshakes, very individualized conversations with a lot of folks, and did speak to reporters briefly while he was at the restaurant, but was there with a lot of Iowa members of Congress.
Yeah, the Machine Shed is a Quad City-based restaurant, actually, that's owned by Mike Whalen, who's been very active in Republican politics. Actually did run for Congress in eastern Iowa a few years back, so that's part of the reason why the Machine Shed often plays a bit of a role when it comes to Republican politics in the state of Iowa.
There we go. I did not know that. I was
a bit
Googling the Machine Shed.
Yeah, Mike Whalen has been very active for quite a few years, and the Machine Shed has been a very successful restaurant and hotel operation that has expanded throughout the Midwest.
Well, for those of you who may not have caught all of Trump's speech, which went about an hour after it started at 4:22, we want to give you some of the highlights from what happened while he was speaking in Clive. And by the way, we did get a bit of a look at the crowd at the very end of the speech. We were looking at a feed of the room, and it finally pulled out, and it did look to be pretty crowded. There were a decent number of people there. Of course, there were also people protesting outside across the street. One of our sister stations reported there were close to 2,000 people protesting at that group's peak.
A lot of people are still very upset, of course, with the ICE actions in Minnesota. That's been the top of the news, and the administration really has been trying to drive more the point to the economy and what the president sees as major successes when it comes to his tariff policies and economic growth. He talked about the Dow Industrials and the stock markets reaching new heights again today, in fact, edging up higher, and taking a lot of credit for it by saying it's because of his economic policy, while others might be saying, well, look, there's a lot of prices that we're still paying more for, and we're still having problems with our pocketbook. So that's really why the president has been hitting almost the campaign trail right now, if you think about it, because the midterms are so important. And as we all know, people often vote their pocketbook. The economy is always consistently the number one issue. And so the president, of course, wants to drive home the point that he believes that his efforts are working very well. So he's been in, I believe Pennsylvania was one of them. Michigan is another state that he's been to, and of course, Iowa now.
Yes, this is part of what the White House says will be weekly visits outside of D.C. trying to ramp up energy for Republicans ahead of the midterm. So obviously that affordability piece, a really huge part of the puzzle. Trump talked about gas prices being lower. He did exaggerate gas prices a little bit. I think he said they were $1.90 something in Iowa, and they're like $2. So exaggerating a little bit, but emphasizing the lower gas prices. Also saying Congress is close to something he was promising Iowa agriculture leaders, which is to offer year-round E15. So he did say that congressional leaders are getting pretty close to being able to pass that. And he did say, of course, as soon as it comes to his desk, he will sign it.
A lot of people outside of Iowa and Illinois don't believe ethanol is a good investment for America's energy policy. So there's politicians that have been slowly edging away from ethanol products because of that. And so it used to be a ritual when you were coming for the Iowa caucuses, and that was always, as a reporter, a question you would ask the candidates is, do you support ethanol? And if so, by how much? And if not, why not? So it's still a major issue when it comes to Iowans, and politicians often either run away from it or they try to say that they do embrace it. And of course, year-round
E15.
E15, a year-round ethanol policy, as opposed to the blend that changes during the winter compared to the summer. It's a major change, of course, for Iowa and its agricultural products.
Yeah, ethanol came up quite a bit. He talked about some of the different trade deals that he's done with other countries, emphasizing Japan getting all of its ethanol from the United States. A lot of those things were very emphasized. Also, trade deals on beef, another thing important for Iowa farmers.
One of the things that really struck me, being from the Quad Cities for so many years, is of course how much he talked about John Deere and Deere and Company off the top, and that the CEO of Deere was just off to the side. And I'm always kind of interested in what is going on, because Deere, of course, has the big plant in Waterloo. It has facilities throughout Iowa. Deere is a big manufacturer in this area. It has been doing very well, more than $1 billion, I believe, in profit that they reported in the fourth quarter. I have to double check that. I thought it was 1.3, but I had to double check because I was just reading about it this weekend. And he really pointed out the fact that Deere is expanding and making excavators. The only excavators to be made, he pointed out, in the United States is going to be at a Deere plant, and taking a lot of credit for that and saying Deere announced that. And I was looking it up, and I found that it's a Kernersville, North Carolina plant, an expansion. But what I'm finding is that it was first announced in 2024.
Really?
The first headline saying they're expanding, or there's plans to expand, was in 2024, May of 2024. So Deere came out with a press release while the president was speaking, pointing out their expansion in North Carolina as well as in Indiana, and not mentioning anything about when that was first announced. So we're looking more into that story that may have been almost old news in a way. But like I said, we're fact checking that, because the best way to fact check it is just at this point, right off the bat, is to Google and to contact Deere and Company. We haven't heard from Deere other than this press release that they gave.
Yes, that is very interesting, because he brought up Deere 2 or 3 times throughout the speech.
Very much at the beginning.
Yes, he's pointing out that the CEO was there in the crowd, that they had talked personally, and was very, very, you could say, proud of this perhaps news from Deere. So that will be interesting to see how long we've known about that, how long those plans have been in the works, and if the Trump administration's economy has had anything to do with that. Speaking of economy, I'm looking through my notes in real time. We were an hour's worth of notes are down here. I had something else. Oh, another huge emphasis from the president today was the no tax on overtime or tips. And he actually, in a very spontaneous, what it seemed, moment, brought up some folks that he was shouting out in the crowd, 2 women, a bar owner, I believe, from Ankeny, and a waitress from Davenport, who he knew their names and was talking about their stories and how this was helping them, not having tax on overtime and tips, and asked them to come up on stage and say a few words, and they seemed a little bit, taken aback. They came up and very graciously said, thank you, this is great, just brief words. But he pulled them up to promote that no tax and overtime and tips, really pushing that.
Well, that issue was one that Donald Trump really put on the national agenda very early, and then I think found Democrats flat-footed on that issue, which you would think that they would have owned, and then all of a sudden you heard other people in the opposing party saying, okay, yeah, that's a good idea. But it was definitely Donald Trump who really made no tax on tips a major issue that just caught fire during the campaign in 2024.
He didn't stay entirely on topic. The president kind of switched on to, very briefly, issues of immigration. Very, 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 very briefly mentioned Minnesota. Not anything specific about the ICE killings, but just mentioned that they had a presence there. And also mentioned drug traffic into the country via those boats. Talking about the possibility of blowing up more boats if people were, they thought that was necessary. So did kind of stray off of the main talking points, briefly mentioning some of the hot button issues per se.
Yeah, absolutely. And if you're going to talk about ICE and the immigration crackdown, I mean, the president is almost taking a more moderate tone than other members of his administration right now. He was asked before this speech more about ICE, and he's basically saying, look, there are major investigations going on right now, and I'm waiting for the results of that. That's very different than what some of the border patrol leaders and Homeland Security have been saying, where they're really, before an investigation is complete, are really laying a lot of the blame, in fact, towards the people that have been shot in both cases.
Absolutely, yeah. He was being pushed by reporters before he got on the flight to Iowa, and then when he landed at the machine shed, was being pushed on those issues a lot. Like we said earlier, he was not alone at the machine shed or at his speech in Clive. He was surrounded by many of Iowa's I don't say all of them because I don't think Mariannette Miller Meeks was there.
I did not see her.
But we saw Randy Feenstra, we saw Ashley Hinson, Zach Nunn.
Yeah.
He said Governor Reynolds was in the crowd. And he, speaking of affordability, pushing all that energy towards midterms. Really hyping up the crowd, asking them to get out and vote for Republican for the midterms. So he shouted just about everybody out by name. And before Trump went up to talk, Ashley Hinson went up to talk. She's a representative right now, but is running for Senate, running for Joni Ernst's seat, which will be open at the midterms. And Zach Nunn came up and talked. He is running for re-election. I wrote up earlier some of the other people in that race because these are the possibly contentious races.
It's a big race, yeah.
It's very big. So Ernst chose not to run for re-election. Hinson is running. Republican Jim Carlin is running. John Behrman is running. Democrats, we have Nathan Sage, Josh Turek, Zach Walz, all of whom I believe have released statements about Trump's presence in Iowa. And then Zach Nunn running for re-election in Iowa's 3rd congressional district. That's seen some shakeup in the last couple days. That has been a little back and forth. State Representative Jennifer Converse was running for that seat and just dropped out, I believe, yesterday through her endorsement behind State Senator Sarah Turner Garrett. So,
yeah, I mean, you're seeing one of the things that happens is that, and we've talked about this in the past, is that you're seeing some of the fundraising numbers come out, and if your fundraising numbers lag behind others, you start falling by the wayside. A lot of people always think that it's poll numbers. Poll numbers are one thing. Fundraising numbers are quite a different thing when it comes to the actual mechanics of a campaign.
Yeah. Governor Reynolds in the audience. Randy Feenstra running for Governor Reynolds' seat now that she's not going to run. Democrats putting up Rob Sand as their big contender for governor for the Democrats.
Yeah, and it's been a long time that you've seen both the governor and a Senate race in Iowa that are kind of up for grabs right now. And so this is going to be a very interesting political season heading into November.
Absolutely. All the more reason for the White House to be putting Trump out on this weekly travel plan, trying to stump a bit for all of the Republican candidates out there.
As well as to make his administration look like the administration that's helping you and your pocketbook. Some of you are saying, yes, he is, and others are saying not enough or not at all. So, I mean, the old phrase, it's the economy. It's stupid. I mean, I'm sorry, economy.
No, it's not. It is exactly what we'll tell.
Yeah, it's going to play a huge factor, which is why he points out, the stock market. And I got to tell you the truth. I mean, the stock market's growth is good news for investors. As he pointed out, it's good news for 401k plans. But, sometimes the stock market is not as good of an indicator of how strong the economy is that it used to be. I mean, it could fluctuate on a dime in one day and be back the next day. It's very fluid, but we're seeing continual gains that we also saw during the Biden administration as far as the stock market is concerned. We saw gains during that period of time as well, and some would say, well, the economy was bad then. So, I mean, I'm not always sure if the stock market is a great indicator, but it does drive, as the president noted, 401ks, and so many of our investments are based on that. So in that way, it's very good.
And they need to be, doing this much campaigning because it is very, very, very rare that the party in power retains their power during the midterms.
Midterms, yeah.
So, and he talked a lot about that. He wants to be one of those presidents that retains the power and continues to be a four-year president, so to speak.
Yeah. And that was part of his address. Clive, Iowa, as we said, it was just under an hour, but it started almost an hour and a half late. Not that that really matters anything, but he sometimes does run late for some of these events. And
all politicians,
a lot of politicians do. Yeah, absolutely. George W. Bush, on the other hand, was very timely.
Okay.
I mean, there was something about George W. Bush that he wanted to be on time. I just remember Bill Clinton. Bill Clinton was among the worst. He was one of the worst. That and Illinois Governor Rod Blagojevich, they would come very late. But George W. Bush was always very punctual.
Wow, that can be appreciated.
Well, yeah, among the media
that
has deadlines, that can be very much appreciated.
Speaking of media with deadlines, we'll have more coverage in the TV9 News at 6 and 10. We have a crew that was at Trump's speech. Our Des Moines crew, Dave Price and Isabella Warren, have been out in Des Moines with a very long day. They had to drop their gear off at, I think, 7:30 in the morning.
Yeah, security's always very tight now.
Yes.
As it should be.
They are working very hard to continue to bring you guys updates and more recaps and fact checks about what Trump said today in Clive. But that is, I believe, all we have for you today here in the streaming studio. As always, if you have any questions you'd like us to look into, any topics, you can reach out and let us know via email or Facebook. Have a great evening.